Welcome back from the break, the 5-minute break. And I hope that everyone's doing okay. With this being our midstream break, we do have a poll going for what game you want me to see. Every Sunday I do a chat's choice poll for what you want to see at the end of stream. But because it is the holiday, we are going to do some holiday-themed games. So I'll let you guys keep deciding. A couple minutes left to choose in that poll what you want to see, and you can vote. You can vote more than once if you have the trilbies for it. And I guess without further ado, we can go on to our reading segment. Usually in the midstream break, I do a reading segment, so I'll go on to just chatting. So let me actually change the category real quick. And usually I read a novel. Currently we've been reading Raptor Red. We also read LMNOP. I think next we're going to read a D&D story. But sometimes I also read fanfics. We read a story, a Jurassic Park fic by Sergeant Legend Killer before, but today, because it is Christmas-themed stream, it is Christmas Eve, I'm going to be reading a Street Fighter fanfic that takes place on Christmas, and it's one that I wrote. I'm a little self-conscious about it, but I really like this story, so I think it'll be a good time. Here, let me turn the background music down just a little bit. Now, for context of this story, it is a Street Fighter V fanfic, and it is kind of inspired by some Christmas skins that they released in, I think, 2019. Didn't we beat Raptor Red? There's still the epilogue. We gotta read the epilogue of Raptor Red, but the story, yes, we pretty much got through the whole story last stream. But just for completion's sake, to 100% the book, we should read the epilogue next time. So I wrote a fanfic mostly inspired by G's outfit. G is that guy who looked like Santa. He looks like this. So for context, this is when I say G, this is who I'm talking about. He doesn't usually look like Santa, but he looks actually, his default skin, he looks kind of like Abe Lincoln, and I'm not joking. And so yeah, he is kind of a character. Apparently he was supposed to, that's just Santa. He's just Santa. We love Santa Abraham Lincoln. And G is a pretty weird character. I think apparently he was meant to be a villain, but the game didn't really do a good job at like explaining that he was a bad guy. He's so weird and silly and like, I don't know. He didn't read as a villain to me, so that's why he's kind of goofy and silly in this fic, because he comes across to me as a very goofy and silly guy, and maybe we don't even know if G is a human, honestly. He goes around saying stuff like, I am the president of the world, and stuff like, you know, just, he just like has these quips of just like, he sounds like he's trying to be a politician, but like, we don't really know what he is. And he's got like earth powers. He can kind of summon like magma and things. And he's just kind of a weird guy with this kind of Louisiana accent, and we love him. We love G. He's hilarious. And the story also takes place after the events of Street Fighter V. So if you guys remember my Street Fighter story mode stream from a while back, I guess a little bit of spoilers there. GuileNash came back, and he did try to defeat Bison. He did die in the process. So this story takes place after they defeat Shadaloo, but it's like the first year that Guile has not been able to have Christmas with Nash, who in the story they are partners, and this is very much a Guile x Charlie fanfic, and that's kind of the premise that you guys need to know. It is a ship fic about Guile being kind of lonely after defeating Shadaloo, and this is his first Christmas without his best friend boyfriend, and he also meets G, who is may or may not literally be Santa Claus. So I hope that's enough backstory. I hope that gets it across. So let's go ahead, and I'm going to try to read this story to you guys. And I found out how to put AO3 on dark mode. Just to kind of be upfront about it. Not all of my stories are PG-13 the way this one is. So use discretion, read the content warnings, and all that good stuff. So without further ado, let's go. And after we finish reading this fanfic, we'll be playing Cave Stories Secret Santa for the rest of stream. So, and yeah, Stego writes, that's me. A Stego who writes. So it's very, anyway. I don't usually do accents and voices when I read stories, but I'll try to do it in this case just because G has a funny voice and he is silly and, add into the immersion, I guess. But I don't do accents very well, and I wouldn't do accents if they weren't American accents, so. I think G is supposed to sound like he's from Louisiana. I'm not really sure. Kind of a Foghorn Leghorn vibe, which I can't really do either, but I'll do my best. Anyway, yes, Santa G. We are we are starting the story now, so without further ado, let's go. Stepping out of the cafe with a cup of black coffee in hand, Guile was surprised to see the tall, elderly gentleman in a Santa Claus costume grinning down at him. He thought the man looked familiar, but it wasn't until he noticed the sunlight reflecting off the gold mark around his eye that he was sure. "Getting ready for Christmas, Mr. President?" Guile asked, his inflection on Mr. President, a sarcasm that G clearly didn't pick up on. "Why, absolutely, Guile of Earth. It's Christmas Eve, after all. Did you know that some Earth traditions involve a certain jolly old man distributing presents to all the good children of the world on this very night?" "Well, sure, but Santa isn't—" He stopped himself, mindful of the possibility of young ears overhearing, and instead continued walking down the block while G followed close behind, bells on his shoes jingling joyously. The self-proclaimed President and Santa waved at passers-by as they went. Most of them paid no mind, though there were a few who trained their cell phone cameras on him, in which he took great delight. "Tell me, Earth Citizen Guile, have you been good this year?" "I suppose so," Guile answered, despite currently jaywalking through the intersection. Not that there was much traffic that afternoon, what with the snowy weather leaving the roads a slather of slush and black ice. Overall, though, he supposed he'd been a good person that year. He'd helped defeat Shadaloo for one thing. He'd done so alongside his friends, Chun-Li, Ryu, Ken, even... Well, he'd gone through a lot that year, and he'd been the best, kindest person he could be in spite of it all. "Well then," G declared in that Louisiana drawl, stepping out in front of him so assertively that Guile took a fighting stance on instinct. "That means you, too, deserve a present this Christmas." Guile relaxed somewhat. "Oh, thanks, G, but I don't really need anything." "Are you sure about that? Is there nothing that you wish for in this most festive occasion?" Guile only shrugged and sipped on his coffee. G considered this for a moment, stroking his long, white beard. Guile wondered if it were real or part of the costume. "How about a coupon for that coffee shop you frequent?" he asked, withdrawing an object from his coat pocket. It was wrapped in a red and gold bow, a plastic card marked with the cafe's logo, as well as a not insignificant dollar amount. "When did you—" "Never mind. No thanks, really," Guile insisted, brushing past G and continuing down the sidewalk. G, not to be deterred, strode after him, and, not to let a good gift go to waste, he slipped the gift card into the horn of one of the street musicians playing carols as they passed. "True, perhaps it's thinking too small to offer you a simple coffee gift. We must think bigger. Big, like your hair." "Excuse me?" From another pocket, G revealed a hefty bottle of hair gel. Even at a glance, Guile could tell that it was the exact brand that he himself was known for. "Merry Christmas, Guile." Guile eyed the old man suspiciously. "How are you doing that?" G chuckled. "I told you, it's Christmas Eve. Time for a jolly old man to bring gifts and Christmas cheer." "I know, but you aren't really... Santa doesn't... Look, if this is just a publicity stunt to promote your campaign or something..." "Campaign? For what? I'm already the president of the world, you know." Yeah," Guile conceded, proceeding to pick up his pace for the next few blocks. At some point, the snow had begun to fall again, its soft flakes catching on the bare tree limbs, as well as Guile's shoulders and the flat top of his hair. "That's it!" G exclaimed, pointing toward the sky as though he had the most brilliant idea. Again, he rummaged through his pockets. "A man such as yourself can't risk being caught in the cold on Christmas Eve. Perhaps what you want most this year..." By the time Guile turned around, G had somehow managed to bring out a knitted hat with matching gloves, scarf, socks, a bright green sweater with the words "Family Man" stitched across the chest. The president's grin was as broad as ever. "Where are you going?" he called as Guile took a sharp turn through an alley. Guile was sure he'd lost him by the time he cut through the park. Not that he considered himself a Scrooge by any means, but this Christmas was one he'd rather just spend quietly alone, without the reminder of giving and receiving presents from loved ones. Besides, the way G was getting these gift ideas was awfully suspicious. Had his associates at the Air Force Base sent G to pester him after he ignored their invitations to the annual Christmas party? Byron Taylor was usually more professional than that, but he wouldn't have put it past his subordinates to pull this kind of stunt with a celebrity food tuber. Or, he considered, maybe G was just lonely. Overbearing, perhaps, but maybe Guile shouldn't have been so cold to him. After all, one could have 1,000 social media followers and still yearn for the company of another person offline. There was no reason to be alone on Christmas of all days, Guile thought, feeling over the embossed letters of the dog tag in his pocket. Although it was still early in the evening, the blanket of gray clouds overhead already made the city dark. It was dark enough now for him to notice the many apartment windows and storefronts decorated with multicolored lights. Some blinked in an arbitrary rhythm, some synchronized to music, others just glowed with no flicker at all. By the time he followed the lights out of the park back to the main road, the continuous snowfall had resulted in thick piles on the street, necessitating the deployment of salt spreaders and plows. The noise of their engines made him almost fail to notice the rumbling of a motorcycle that came speeding up from behind. "It's a long walk home in this weather," who else but G hollered from the seat. "Can I interest you in a ride?" "Let me guess," Guile sighed as the red, white, and blue bike pulled up beside him. "You think this motorcycle is the perfect Christmas gift for me?" "Not unless you prefer something with a little more trunk space," G answered, pulling out a ring of keys and pressing a button that caused a brand new sports car across the street to chirp. Guile rubbed his eyes. "Look, I appreciate the gestures, and I still have no idea how you're doing this, but there's really, honestly nothing that I want that you can give me." "Oh, but there has to be something," G insisted as he dismounted the motorcycle and again stroked a hand over his beard and mustache. Were they real, though? "Let me think. You're the kind of fella who's brave, patriotic, selfless, loves his friends and family from the bottom of his heart. Someone who embodies the qualities of humanity that all the people of Earth might hope to strive for. What, I ask you, what to give a man who finds happiness not in mere material possessions, but in his bonds with those who make his life full and worth living and fighting for? What to give a man who wants nothing, for he already has everything in his heart? After all, is it not the true meaning of Christmas, the true value of the holiday spirit, something that transcends such material, impermanent possessions? And yet, doesn't a man who has fought so hard and loved and lost so much, does he not deserve to have as magical a Christmas as any good child of Earth?" Being that it was impossible to get a word in edgewise, when G went off into one of his grand speeches, Guile gave up on trying to invite the man over for Christmas Eve dinner. Only after G had come down from his crescendo and the cheering onlookers began to disperse did he realize that Guile was nowhere to be found. Still, he maintained that big, jolly smile. Just then, a metallic glimmer caught his eye in the snow at his feet, twinkling in the alternating illumination of red and green lights. He bent down to retrieve it, lifting the tag by its chain and reading the embossed name with great curiosity. "Ah, perhaps there is something for you after all, Mr. Guile." Later that night, Guile lay on his couch, watching the glow of colored lights strung around the bristles of the Christmas tree. It was a lush, bushy pine with deep green needles and a strong sap smell. A healthy plant, but too tall for the dimensions of Guile's apartment. The topmost branch bent flat against the ceiling. A few round baubles dangled here and there, casting a rainbow light and psychedelic patterns on the walls, but the quantity and quality of decorations were modest. Equally sparse was the area beneath the tree. There were, as always, a few boxes from Ken, which he suspected were wrapped by Eliza, as the creases were too smooth and too lacking in scorch marks. The only other significant indication of the holiday season was the row of greeting cards from his government associates, propped up along the mantel. The cards were fanned out evenly alongside a framed photo of he and Charlie from their younger days. He rolled over with a grunt, feeling the heat of the fireplace against his bare back. As he felt himself dozing off, He wondered if G would try any more Santa antics while he slept. Maybe he should stoke the fire hotter. Guile lay there, pondering, absently listening to the weather report on TV that told of the ongoing blizzard, until a soft knock at his door returned him to alertness. It was too late in the night for another package delivery, he thought, unless one of his neighbors had something for him or something. Whoever it was, it had to be important if they were taking the risk of going out in the middle of the night in what had suddenly become the fiercest snowstorm of the year. When he reached the door, he paused with his fingertips against the knob. He thought he could hear the sound of jingle bells on the other side. With a deep breath to brace himself, he pulled the door open, wincing at the cold wind that whipped against his half-dressed body. Guile? He blinked at the figure standing before him. No, it wasn't G, nor his neighbors, nor a delivery person. Somehow it was Charlie? Guile gasped. I thought you were dead. I saw you. And then it occurred to him. Wait, why are you surprised that I live here? Why else did you knock on my door? Before anything else, Charlie stepped through the threshold and wrapped Guile in a tight embrace. He was only slightly less underdressed for the winter weather than Guile, wearing the same cargo pants and sleeveless jacket that he had last been seen in back at Shadaloo, but their cold bodies quickly warmed as they touched. It was real. Charlie was real. I didn't know you lived here. Charlie choked through barely held back tears. I just woke up in the blizzard and followed the light. To your apartment window, apparently. So you don't remember how you ended up here? Charlie shook his head. Nothing. I don't even know what this is, he added, gesturing to the gift-wrapped object that he now realized he was holding. Guile took it, examining the card affixed to the gold ribbon around the neck of the thing. Well, it's addressed to both of us, I think. What do you mean you think? Charlie laughed. Does it have our names on it or not? Hey, shut up. I can't see through my tears. You read it. Hold on, I'm crying too. Jesus, Guile. They took a few minutes to laugh and cry and hug and kiss each other again, snuggling on the couch in the glow of the Christmas lights and the crackling fire. The couch was much too small for the both of them. Not that it stopped them from trying to sprawl out on the cushions, nor did it stop them from continuing to cuddle on the floor when they both fell off of it. It was just like old times. Charlie's face, his voice, his laugh, his scent, all just as Guile remembered. Charlie even came at him with stories and inside jokes that Guile had nearly forgotten himself. Their banter came as easily as that of any two friends who were reunited after a long time. Even the dog tag around Charlie's neck was as clean and shining as it had been before his death. Something wrong? Charlie asked of Guile's confused expression. No, that's weird, he observed, turning out his pockets. Did you have that on when you woke up? Charlie examined his tag, just as perplexed as Guile. I think so. Why? Well, I was holding onto it after you, and I had it with me all day today. At least, I thought I did. I must have dropped it while I was talking to him. Talking to who? Guile gazed a long moment at the Christmas tree, his eyes fixing on one of his oldest ornaments, which depicted the figure of a grinning, rosy-cheeked Santa Claus. You know what? It's a long story, and you're gonna find it hard to believe. All right, save your stories for later. If you aren't using your mouth in the meantime, though, can I kiss you again? The gift, they would eventually discover, was just a bottle of wine, and the card, they would see when their eyes were finally dry enough, was in fact addressed to them both. It was simply a generic greeting card, like that which could be found at any department store, with no message other than Happy Holidays printed onto it. This card, as one may suspect, was signed with just a single, bold initial. Merry Christmas, everybody. That's my Street Fighter fanfic for you all. Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas. Thank you, Ishi. I hope you guys enjoyed that. I think it's one of my better fanfics, even though I did write it like 3 years ago. But yes, let me go ahead and grab a glass of water, do that Stego self-care, and I hope you like the shameless shipfic for Christmas there. Doing G's voice takes a lot out of me. Oh, Crispo says, I can stop the Guile theme music now. Hey, Guile's theme goes with everything, even ship fix. Someone's got to make a Guile's theme Christmas remix to go with this story. Reiji says, that's a really sweet story, Fedora. Loved the reading you gave G. The reunion between Guile and Nash was so charming. Oh, thank you. Thank you. And thank you, Sapphic Laser Kittens. Crispo says, I was playing it, the Guile's theme, in another tab, which you should have. I should have. I have a hard time reading out loud when there's... So when I'm reading to myself in my head, I can listen to music, but when I'm reading out loud and there's music playing, I tend to get more distracted, which is weird. So yes, play your own music when I read on stream, by all means. I have a hard time doing it. But yes, and no shame the ship. Thank you for your support. I know GuileNash is a bit of a niche little ship there, but it's a special one to me. My two favorite characters, they do Nash dirty in every game, I think, but someday he'll be alive for real this time. But there's my little Christmas miracle there of G being Santa and somehow bringing Charlie back. It's silly, but you know. Now I'm gonna take a glass of water here for that Stego self-care. Stay hydrated, everybody. Take your meds. Stay hydrated.